Hello, my friends. Just want to speak upon these days that we're entering into. I spoke a while ago leading up to this, how if this day that we're approaching is indeed of the Lord, and it's a day that He has picked, that He has anointed as having purpose and meaning for us, then we would see an uptick of things, and things would become more clear as we gradually approached that day. And isn't it amazing how all of the things that we're looking at as far as that day is concerned have come much clearer since we began thinking about the possibilities of that day. And of course, that day that I'm speaking of is just a few days from now as we approach it. We don't know what's going to happen. For a baby in a womb doesn't know what that outside world looks like. It doesn't know what it's going to feel. It doesn't know exactly what's happening. But in the hands of a good doctor, you trust. Even as a woman given labor, you trust in the hands that are about to deliver that baby. And thus we can do and will do the same thing today, realizing that we're a woman in travail, realizing who the scarlet beast is and how it has been marked. And by understanding who that scarlet beast is, realizing that you're in the days of the fulfillment of that scripture of Revelation 17 and 18, and you can make determinations then as what will come next. It's walking with foresight, walking in the spirit of prophecy, rather than looking back at hindsight. And though you can't figure out all the details, when we are changed, all that we do not know now, we will know fully then. And we're waiting on that day, and I see a day that is approaching where the sun is going to go down at noon, and it's going to be down until 3, just like what happened in the crucifixion. I see these earthquakes. Of course, the big one that just hit Taiwan, and then now just today, a few minutes ago, you had another one hit. I think it was a 6.8 or something like that. We're seeing the gradual uptick in a huge magma flow, plate movement across the entirety of the earth. We have the Iceland volcano that I've spoken about before because I've received information of it. We have that going off and continuously going off. We have the amping up of wars and the rumors of wars. We have all these things that Jesus said, hey, look for these things. When you see these things, you know that I'm coming, and you know that they're going to gradually increase until I come, just like a woman in travail. And then when you see other things, you know that the nearness of that moment is even closer. And that's the day that I see approaching, with the sun going down, the earth moving, the people all over the world in perplexity as the waves are roaring around them, the signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. We literally have every single one of these things taking place right now before that day approaches. We also have this devil comet, obviously, that's coming through. And when you understand how it's marked by being called a devil comet, and how I've spoken for years of a green comet passing that would have meaning for us. And this just happens to be a green devil comet that's coming during the time of that darkness for 3 hours. And how do we know Satan comes? Satan falls like lightning. And as he comes, he sweeps 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. This comet during the eclipse is going to look as though it's chasing after Jupiter in a sense. And you know that we had the Revelation 12 picture frame, but a picture frame in the Word of God never stays still. It continues to move. So in 2017, when we had the first eclipse and we had the so-called Revelation 12 sign, which I still believe it was a picture of that, you had that sign then turn into motion to the days that we're watching come right before us now. And as this devil comet has a tail, it looks like it could sweep stars out of the sky and fling them down to earth. We have an unnatural governmental response. For instance, Florida, nowhere near the eclipse, as far as totality is concerned. They're shutting everything down. They're shutting down interstates. They are preparing or expecting something. And what I ask you to ponder today is the devil is given the keys to the bottomless pit, and he opens them. You have CERN going off at the same time. The devil will know when he's handed the keys. And the devil is only handed those keys because the Lord allows him to do so. Go back to Job and you can see what happens whenever the Lord turns someone or even a nation over to the devil. The devil is aware he's being turned it over to him so that in his days he can do what he's going to do. So just think of the circumstances of this. If the devil knows he's being handed the keys because he has asked and he has been granted that, because the people have fallen away from God, the only way that God's going to save them now is by turning their flesh over to Satan, and then they will be saved. That's why it's joyous days as far as the unsaved right now who believe that they're saved, because they will have their opportunity to see, once they see the events that are actually going to happen on that day that the Lord actually makes his presence known to us, known to the whole world. Then they might believe after that what they can't believe now because they're thrown so far into their traditions and into apostasy that it's literally a stumble block that cannot be removed from them. But in these days that will come after that day approaches and comes, then they may be saved by what they will see with their eyes, and then maybe they will be born again. And what we do here is like a woman in travail. The baby inside of the woman has no idea what's going to come when they exit that womb. They don't even know what's going on during that process. Like, we don't know what's going on right now, but we know something is. But the good doctor reaches in and grabs the baby right before any problems that can then occur to that baby would happen, and that is our situation. The government's giving this response, which is just, I mean, people are looking at it and saying, this is strange, this is weird, why are they doing all this? People all around the world are calling the response of the government crazy. And that's why I bring up Satan given the keys to the bottomless pit. What if Satan knows his hour has come, or his day has come, where he will be given the keys to that bottomless pit? Satan is embedded in every single one of the government institutions in the world. Do you think that maybe Satan would be preparing for that D-Day? That maybe Satan on that day knows that he's given the keys and he's already preparing for it ahead of time because he's already spiritually embedded in all of these leaders? Do you think maybe he believes that day is D-Day for him? That would be a possible reason why the government would give this kind of a response, is if they are aware of it, or if they're aware of something, even something spiritually given to them that they can't discern what it means. Satan uses people like puppets under his power. It's almost as if he's setting up for his D-Day. The comet passing by, going to sweep a third of the stars out of the sky. We had a lightning bolt strike the Statue of Liberty yesterday. The woman who will be thrown into the bottom of the sea. Revelation 17:18, that great harlot who stands and says, I will never mourn. You have all these things which cannot be a coincidence all happening at the same exact time. Just like a woman, when she gets those final birthing labors, she goes into labor. That's literally like what we're watching happening right now. All of these things set up which cannot be a coincidence, all at the same exact time. So I say to you all, as we see that day approaching, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as in the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. I see a day approaching which could fulfill everything that those who have been Christians for the last 2,000 years have been waiting on. I see that day approaching, a day that could do all of those things all at once. And that's why I say, my friends, watch. Keep, look, stay awake, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we must believe and understand that it is, and that it will, and that it could, and put our faith in that, and do not be scared or afraid of the things of the world, because what awaits us is the way out of this world, and what awaits those who remain is their only way back to God, a way that they don't even understand exists right now because they already believe they're walking with Him. For the lukewarm apostates, this is their way back to God. It's coming. It's just not at all coming to whom and how they expect it to come. But I see that day approaching, and as for us, it's almost like we can be under some kind of anesthesia, where the world is like frogs in a pot of water where the water gradually gets turned up until they boil and die. That's how the world was. Well, that's strange. Why are they doing all those things? Well, that doesn't make any sense, but nobody does anything because we're used to being in that position. We've been trained not to do anything or question anything. Anything the news says, oh yeah, well that makes sense. Huh, yeah, that could be right. And so people blow it off as though tomorrow's going to come just like today did. But there comes a point where tomorrow does not come the same as today did, just as it was in the days of Noah, just as it was in the days of Lot. But as for us, we're not like that frog. We're like the doctor administering an epidural for the woman who's going into labor. We're being administered that as we see all these things happening to us all at once, and we who have the eyes to see, we should be terrified of these things. But we're not. We've been put in some form of anesthesia where we've been able to separate what's about to happen from the world, as though we're walking in it, but we're separate from it. That's essentially how I feel today as I see these days approaching. Darkness coming over the land for 3 hours, which has been marked as the scarlet beast. Come out of her, my people, so that you do not partake in her sin. The great destruction that's coming over that land. At the same time, a green comet of all things is passing by, which could very easily be the reason why a third of the stars are swept from the heavens and down to the earth. It could be the very reason for the destruction of that great harlot who sits on many waters in Revelation 17:18. And it could be the very day of the divorce of the apostate church, just as it was for the Jews 2,000 years ago who were Jews by blood, who claimed that they followed the law, but when God stood in front of them, they did not know him. That same divorce is coming for the apostate church. But there will be a way back during the Great Tribulations. There will be a path. God will save all of Israel, and by Israel I mean everyone who will believe in the Lord. He will save all of them. Even if it means for a little season, their flesh must be handed over to Satan. I see this day approaching where every piece of the scriptures could be fulfilled, and I've seen it go in an uptick since we began understanding what was about to come months ago. I've seen everything happen as I had expected it to happen. And now we're just waiting for that day as it approaches. And the most amazing thing, everybody talking about going out and seeing the eclipse. And then now you see all of these weather patterns coming, where they're all saying now no one's going to be able to see the eclipse. It's going to be cloudy. No one's going to be able to see it. It's just going to go dark, and then it's going to be light again. We're going to miss all of it by the clouds. And then you understand how Jesus returns. And he comes in the clouds with great power and glory. Every single one of these things are lining up for this day as we see it approaching. And my friends, look up, because we know when we see these things, our redemption has drawn nigh. God bless.